LifeStories Live.
But I feel like God wants me to tell you about some terrible news. That Charles Rockefeller, a well-known dentist and sponsor of the station, has just been diagnosed with cancer. Mark then said, I just sense that Charles is listening tonight. He had no idea that I was in bed alone listening. And my heart just started to race, and I began to sweat and perspire. What else was Mark going to say? Then Mark said, Charles, we love you and care about you. We are praying for you, Charles, and we believe, Charles, that God is going to heal you. That night, I knew that I had not received a message from Mark Evans, but I received a message directly from God at the moment of my greatest turmoil and uncertainty. God really did understand my situation, and I realized afresh how much God cares for me, and that He was with me, and that He would never forsake me. I just want to move on with this Christian radio station. It is still going in 2022. I have served on the board now for 12 years, and it now broadcasts 24 hours a day, including 8 hours of teaching to over 6 million people in the Geelong, Melbourne basin here in Australia. In this battle with the cancer in 1998, 99 was tough. I had chemotherapy and radiation. It was difficult. It was painful at times and uncomfortable. All the doctor's appointments, all the hospital visits completely changed my life. Of course, I couldn't sort of really practice dentistry, but I had the strong desire to live, and I asked God for help and the strength to get through each day. Early in 2000, after these 2 years of treatment for the lymphoma, I'll tell you what, the lymphoma just went crazy, and I had all these golf-size lumps in my neck and throughout my body, and it was just spreading like crazy. And the doctors said, Charles, you're gonna die in 2000. The chemotherapy, the radiation is just not working. Your only hope for a long-term cure would be a successful bone marrow transplant. Yet even with a bone marrow transplant, up to 40% of people who have this transplant back then died within the first year from complications of the transplant. And before a bone marrow transplant can even take place, you need a matched donor. A sibling was your best chance of being a matched donor, and each sibling has a 25% chance of being a match with you. Herman, my older brother, was not a bone marrow match for me, so that only left a 1 in 4 chance of a match with my younger brother, Robert. Thank God my younger brother, Robert, was a perfect match. And that was a real answer to many prayers. So in March 2000, I was admitted to the Royal Melbourne Hospital, and this would become a 6-week inpatient stay in a solitary room. And I'd be given a lethal dose of chemotherapy, which would kill off all my personal, Charles's, bone marrow, blood cells, and lymph system. And it also helped shrink those golf ball sized lymphomas by about 25%. I was then given my brother Robert's stem cells bone marrow transplant in the form of a pint of blood, and this was transfused into my vein. This was a plan. Robert's healthy stem cells would hopefully take hold in my body and become my new bone marrow, my new blood supply, blood cells, and my lymph system. And I'll add that to this day, 24 years later, and for the rest of my earthly life, I will have my brother Robert's bone marrow, blood supply, and lymph system. I just want to say something. There is great power in the blood. In the Bible, and this was written about 4,000 years ago in Leviticus, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. Robert's blood has saved my physical body here on earth. Jesus Christ's blood has washed away my sins in the curse of death and saved my spiritual soul for eternity. I just want to tell you what actually destroys the final lymphoma in my body would be Robert's new bone marrow, his new blood supply, and Robert's lymph system. Seeing the cancer, this lymphoma, as foreign in Charles's, in my body, and destroying it. And this is called graft versus host disease. But the interesting thing about this graft versus host disease, so Robert's new system, it also recognizes my organs as being foreign, like my skin, my eyes, my liver, my lungs, my bladder, and it wants to attack that as well. So it's not only wants to attack the cancer lymphoma, but it also wants to attack these important organs of my body. So my prayer was, and many people were praying this. We were asking God, and only God knew the amount of graft versus host disease I needed. Enough graft versus host disease to kill off all lymphoma cancer, but not too much graft versus host disease to destroy a vital organ like the lungs or the liver and kill Charles. So that was the prayer. The pain, the nausea, the diarrhea was intense from the massive week-long dose of lethal chemotherapy. And I completely lost all my own immune system. So any spiking of infection.
Life Stories.
When you have this compromised immune system would cause death in hours. That's why they kept us in isolation in solitary rooms. On numerous nights, I felt as though I was balancing between life and death. Just a couple of stories. At 8 p.m. one night, I spiked an infection when I had no immune system, and it was in the blood. And the nurse needed to get blood out of my vein so that they could do tests and find out what the bug was and maybe give me the appropriate antibiotic to kill off the infection. It took that nurse 30 attempts over a 2-hour period between 8 and 10 p.m. to get that blood. I was just praying for 2 hours, just asking God for strength and for help. I did not know this, but at 10 p.m., the head nurse rang my wife, Leanne, and told her to get prepared for my intimate death that night. Another night, they always put us to bed at 8 p.m. and they turn off the light. And you'd be in the dark, solitude, and all alone. But it was interesting. I was never alone. It was as though Jesus was next to me, holding my hand. He gave me this great peace, this presence. He was so real, so very real. I want to tell you too, during that 6-week stay, I read through the whole Bible. It gives you such comfort, such strength. But there was this one night, and they put me to bed at 8 p.m., but I couldn't even lie in the bed. I was in so much pain from the massive diarrhea. And I was just sitting in a lounge chair in the dark for 4 hours between 8 and midnight. And I was just physically crying out to God. I was in so much pain. And I said, God, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it through tonight. I'm in too much pain. I just can't go on any longer. Because my goal would always be, God, get me through to the daylight of the next morning. But I just couldn't do it this day. I was just crying. I said, God, I can't go on. But who's going to look after Leanne and the 2 kids? And God said, don't worry, Charles. No matter if you're alive or dead here on earth, Leanne, Michael, and Stephanie are in my hands, and I'm looking after them and caring for them. So I had this great assurance, and I had this peace that, I'd be with Jesus in heaven, tonight. And I can remember about midnight, I was still in that lounge chair crying out to God in such severe pain. And I said to the head nurse who came in and visited me, I said, and I was crying, I said, look, you're going to have to help me. I don't have the strength to go on anymore. I'm in so much pain. I can't cope. I'm ready to go to be with Jesus, and I want to die. And she left the room, and within 5 minutes, she had one of the 2 doctors in this massive hospital at night. There's only 2 doctors in my room, and he gave me this dose of pethidine. And within a minute, I was asleep, and I slept for 8 hours. That was the game breaker. And for the next couple of weeks, thank God I was a drug addict on pethidine, and I got through. And but God was with me. God was there. God had it all under control. God gave me the strength. And I'll tell you what, you only learn when you go through tough, difficult situations. That's when you do your best learning. And look, dying was a reality for me. I can remember one night hearing the chap next door, who was also 40, screaming and yelling in pain for 3 hours between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. And then the crying and the screaming just stopped at 11 p.m. The following morning at 7 a.m., I asked the doctor, what happened next door to John? And he said, Charles, John was taken to intensive care at 11 p.m. last night. That's why the crying stopped. And he died overnight from liver failure. Talk about the liver and how important it is, and how God protected my liver because I listened to him and got off the drinking. Well, that guy died of liver failure. I'll never forget that screaming and pain cries, for 3 hours. And look, I could honestly say I was really prepared for passing through this life here on earth and entering into eternity, which I look on as the real life, the eternal life. And I really feel this short time we have here on earth, maybe 30, 60, or 90 years, is just preparing us, just a journey to get us ready for the real life, which is eternity in heaven with Jesus, for those of us who believe. The book of Psalms provides great comfort to me while I was in hospital. Many passages spoke directly to my heart, to my spirit, and how I was feeling. Like Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Another verse, the Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge. He is my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. Being released from hospital after 6 weeks and returning home was an emotional experience. It made me thankful for the many small blessings.
Life Stories.
We take for granted, like home-cooked meals, being with the family around the table, and seeing the family dog. I still had chronic health problems due to graft-versus-host disease from my brother Robert's bone marrow, blood supply, and lymph system. With my skin to the day, I still have issues. My liver nearly went into failure in 2002. My eyes are dry and need eye drops every hour. My lungs have been scarred and the capacity was reduced by 50%. And my bladder was scarred and reduced. For 6 months, my bladder was so bad that I had to be in adult nappies, as I wanted to wee every 5 minutes, and I had no control over my weeing. I can remember once being in the lift at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. This was before I had nappies, and it was filled with 10 people, and the wee just came out and, onto the floor of the lift. It was one of the most humiliating moments of my life. And, I got through with God's help. Remember that prayer we were asking God, and only God knew the exact amount of graft versus host disease to kill off the lymphoma cancer, but not too much graft versus host disease to destroy a vital organ of Charles and kill him. Well, a very special moment came for my wife and I, also families and friends, when we read a CAT scan report 18 months later in 2002, saying that Charles' body was normal and he was free of lymphoma cancer. How amazing that was. After the transplant in 2000, I retired from practicing dentistry at 40 years of age and sold my dental practice. In January 2010, my 52-year-old older brother, Herman, just disappeared and went missing for 4 days. Everyone was searching for him. And then he was found murdered. We later learned that Herman had been living a destructive secret double life for decades. And during this period, I learned the importance of forgiveness, because a lot of forgiveness was needed. In 2015, this just happened 2 weeks after Stephanie's wedding, and I was wondering why I couldn't swallow any of the steak at Stephanie's wedding. I was diagnosed with a 5-centimeter cancer in the esophagus, and it was growing quickly. It was just here in the esophagus, and it was growing really quickly. Death was just around the corner, and so they sort of thought, you had nothing to lose. Let's try chemotherapy again, and let's place massive doses of radiation on that area, because otherwise he's just going to die within 3 to 6 months, a very horrible death. So that's what happened, and it actually worked. It actually shrunk the cancer and stopped it from growing, but it created this esophageal stricture right here in the esophagus. So, I have to really cut up food and all that, because it will get caught there at the stricture, and you just can't get any food down, and so what needed to happen was that every 2 months, I would need to go to the local hospital, have a general anesthetic, so be put under, and then the esophageal specialist would go down there and open up the stricture so that food could pass down again, and he'd have a look at the area. Well, over the last 7 years, I've had 50 of these operations at the local hospital under general anesthetic, by this specialist who's the best man in the area for esophagus. And it just happens, this is how God's provided and God's hand's been upon my life. It just happened that the man who does this operation has been a good friend of mine for 25 years, and he lives 2 doors away from me in my street. So he just lives 50 meters away from me in my street. Look, I just thank God for medical science. I've had a wonderful team of medical specialists for over 20 years. And this wonderful Catholic hospital here in Geelong has just given me such wonderful VIP care and for giving me a second chance of life here on earth. I've given most magnificent care and loving support from Leanne, my beautiful wife, Stephanie, Michael, family, friends, and the church. This journey here on earth is a team effort, especially when you go through cancer. You not go through it alone. I had this wonderful community supporting me, but I also had that peace that I do not need to fear death, because when I die, I will be with Jesus in heaven. And all of us are going to die one way or the other. We're just passing through this life. Look, I don't understand why some people are healed from cancer while others die from cancer. One thing I have learned over the past 25 years is that Jesus Christ has always been with me, and he has directed my life and wants the very best for me. All of us will face various difficulties in life. They may be relationship difficulties, health issues, financial needs, or unforeseen crises and traumas. But look, my advice is not to go through life alone.